Hello and welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be looking over Cricket Captain 2020, guys, and I'm going to be giving you my tips and tricks for this game, guys. I have received a lot of people, or I've heard a lot of people have wanted help with this game, trying to get into it. It is a super hard game to get into, especially if you jump into the normal difficulty, as I plunged into myself without really knowing what I was doing. I've learned a lot of stuff. I've played probably 250 hours of this, all the Cricket Captain games combined. So I think I've got a decent amount of knowledge, guys, to give you as someone who's played the game quite a bit now. I'm just going to jump into, let's say, a New Zealand career mode. I'm going to jump with, I tell you what, make it hard. We're going to jump with Otago, for example. These are the sort of difficulties you can play on. You can play on easy, very easy, or normal. These two are really the difficulties you want to play on if you're kind of learning the game. I myself, though, I did not actually do that at all. I just went straight to normal and had to learn the hard way. But with this guide, you might possibly be able to start on normal and win some games. So I wouldn't be surprised about that. These are the match types for it. So we're doing a domestic career mode, I must add. So that means that I play as the Otago team, but I have the chance to one day graduate to New Zealand. It will happen. I'll slowly, over time, graduate, and New Zealand will offer me the captaincy for the national team, and I'll be able to, as you can see, test captaincy, earn it, which is actually just the captaincy for all the formats as well. So if you selected these other two formats as well, then you get both of those as well. I'm just going to jump from there. And yes, I'm just going to jump straight in. And for example, I would normally simulate through to the current season. And here we are at the contracts, so we go straight in. And it usually gives you this from the club committee. Yep, same old message. What I would normally do is, so this is the expired contracts list. As you can see, you can sign all of these players. You can sign none of them. They will all, well, they all should flow through to the market, but sometimes players may not. It's a bit, yeah, I would suggest the first thing I would do, though, guys, is not just go through here. I look at the squad I've got. So this is the squad I've got. As I can see, I've got 5 bowlers and 6 batters, 2 openers in the first class format at least. And straight away, Robertson comes in with an average of 41.69, not too bad. And Harkness, Richard Harkness, you'd straight away look at his second 11 stats. And I would tell you what to look for, guys, but you would know. If you know cricket, you would know exactly what to look for. You would be looking for an average of really 40 plus, really 50 plus in second 11 3-day, because the transition between the second 11 3-day and to first class level and then to test matches is quite brutal. So an average of 50 plus would easily help you guys, or help that player, would in theory at least help that player to do well at first class level and then test level. If you have anything about 40, they'll be okay, but I don't think they'll develop into a test player as such. But for example, I might even just be like, yep, 40 average right now, that would be fine first year, because you know that might be alright. So sure, those actually, I would, before I do that, I'd look at the other formats though. Averaging 48 in one days and 18 in T20. So T20, no. ODI, this guy, averaging 43, 24, 21, 37, 31. So Harkness, I would absolutely leave out here. Wouldn't even bother with Harkness. I'd probably look at signing Robertson, just because 48.29 for one days is not too bad. It's hard to tell because they've only really played a season, but I might even just go 2 years on Wayne Robertson. For these guys, you'd really have to look at the last sort of year. Like Rippon had a pretty good year, so I might sign him. Yeah, for these guys, it's a bit more challenging, guys, because these guys got their stats before they got into the game, and sometimes the game may or may not have a bias, I'm not gonna lie, on the game, which says, yep, that player's not any good. So this guy, for example, he's played 11 games, average of 40. Yeah, he's probably not going to develop into anything, unfortunately, in this game, just because at the time of making this game, averaging 40 in first class, the game's not exactly going to rate you very high, so that's not going to happen. Jake Duffy would be okay. Bacon would be pretty good. Nathan Smith would be interesting. Didn't do all that well with the ball. Did okay with the bat, though, so only 22. Maybe sign him up for a couple of seasons. Main thing is I would probably sign people up anyway. I might even leave Max Chu out, though, because an average of 14 at first class level, the game might Okay, I'll just probably sign them anyway. Maybe for a year. See how they go across that year. And sign everyone. Alright, so once you've signed everyone from your own club, guys, this is where you get to look at the domestic pool of players. As you can see, because I'm Otago and I've done this pretty poorly, I have next to no budget left anyway, so... But if you did drop a few more players than I do, which I suggest you do, because some of those players are not necessarily worth having for a year or whatever, but because I'm Otago anyway, I'd have next to no budget. But if you're any other team that has some sort of budget, especially in the English county scene, you'd have some pretty good money. Then you would look through the domestic pool and see if you can look at your squad and kind of see, okay, well, we probably need a few more bowlers. We've got a couple of wicketkeepers, so that's not too bad. The first thing, though, I would go across again and look at the youth once more. The youth guys are extremely important in terms of your club's development going as a domestic career mode and even at international level as well. You want to pick guys who have shown they're very good at second 11 cricket, or if you're picking international, obviously first class. But second 11 success usually transitions into that format success, which then transitions into international success at that format. So for example, looking at Jeffrey Wong, his second 11 3-day match, it's a bit hard to tell because he's only played 19 games, but if he's averaging 51 at that level in 19 games, he must be pretty good. Let's look at his one day though. Yeah, not the best. That's pretty average really, and that's really bad. So he might be good at first class level. The other two, it looks like he would have to have some serious works there. Chapman averages 38 at the top there, 25, 22, 28, 38. So again, an interesting thing there. You could pick Seth White as maybe a one-day specialist, but even an average of 38 is not the best. So these guys are pretty average, to be fair. So if it were me, I might even just allow one round to go through, because all the clubs or all the domestic teams will sign their players, and all of a sudden the list here will change. The whole list here will change. A bunch of people will be out of contracts. A bunch of people will have contracts. And see straight away, Curry here, averaging 19.96. What are they doing? I don't know what the AI was doing there, but they should have definitely gone for Curry here. Oh, well, what am I talking about? There you go, guys, straight away. The AI should definitely have gone for Curry. Well, they have. There you go. Wellington want Curry for 25,000 because Curry averages less than 20 at second 11 3-day, which would should's the key word, sometimes it doesn't, but should is the key word, directly translate into first class performance. 20 at one day level, just maybe 21 at worst, but that is still very good. Look at Harkness, right? 43 and 14 at T20 level. That is absolutely crazy statistics. So I would 100%, if it were me, I would try and steal Curry right here, if it were me, because that is crazy numbers. I would not let him go for that much. But then again, do we need a fast bowler? I don't know. I think another opening batsman would be pretty good here. Everything else kind of seems covered, maybe a better all-rounder. So probably the last thing we need right now is a good bowler, but it'd be a bit of a shame to give up Curry, let's say that, because currently there is nothing else really there. So let's say, for this round's sake, I let Curry go, and there you go, he signs. Good on him. Let's see if there's anything else out there. And the reality is, there's probably not. So it's probably a really bad mistake. Oh, there you go. Soper actually did go to Canterbury, interestingly enough. So yeah, because there were no other players that came in, that was a mistake on my part. I probably should have gone for him. But maybe I was going to say we'd go for Wong. And again, Northern Districts are jumping in saying, yeah, I'd love to pick him up as well, please. So what about this player here? There you go. Right there, guys. Look at this. Tom McCrory. Tom McCrory, look at him. 61 at first class level. 59.31. I'd sign the man in a heartbeat. If it were up to me, he'd be in the team right now. I would steal him from the Auckland team without a doubt. I'd go 25, like, you know, or not quite. You want him as cheap as possible, but man, I would want that player in my team. Can we grab him? Yep. He's like, yep, sweet as, I'm in. And boom, we stole him from Auckland there. And that would be obviously our draft for, or our auction, if you like, for the Otago team. But look at that. Like, that guys, he was a massive buy there. He's 26 years of age. But gee, his statistics there were incredibly good. 61. And if you look at the whole Otago team, only Kelly has a higher average. Other than, okay, Foxcroft does too. There's a couple of people, but not many. 61. Like, our youth player that we picked up before, guys, which we probably shouldn't have done at now, looking back. Average 41. That's 20 difference, and he's played 30 more games. Incredible stuff there, but that's what you would do in the auction, guys. That's how you would play it. If you were looking at overseas players, obviously we can't do it for this round, but you'd also look through the overseas players as well, kind of see what kind of pops up, and you'd probably as well do the same. You'd go through and see, okay, who is actually got a good second 11 3-day average. So Mir would be one. There you go. 19, pretty decent. And try and see if you can find some cheap but awesome buys. Like Shajil Khan, like you can see here, he's 31k, but he's averaging 52 at second 11 3-day. And then 39.28. So maybe that's the sort of stuff you'd be looking for, trying to get some cheap buys. And those who are not going to be picked by their national sides as well, I must add. Because, for example, Kushal Mendes wants to play, 77% available. Well, the reality is two things. He would either one, be picked to play for Sri Lanka, and that availability would actually be lower, or two, he would actually be dropped, even though the availability says 77%, and actually be 100%. So the availability, guys, I will say one tip right there, it is almost always wrong, because it's either basically 0 or it's 100. It's not really going to be a bit of both. I mean, it might be, but it's the real 77. Like, it's just pulling a number out of, nowhere, really. Like, how are you going to say he's going to be 77% available? But you can see here, he's playing test matches, Kushal Mendes, so I wouldn't go for him at all, because he's already playing test matches, right? Zach Crawley, so he's playing first class. He did play a bit of tests there, but he's playing first class T20. So you just try and look for those guys who are not being picked by their national team, because then they'll be available for your domestic season. That's the only real reason there. Otherwise, you pick someone like, oh, let's go for Rashid Khan down here, only 61k. The reality is Rashid Khan will almost never come and play, because he's always being picked by Afghanistan, or like, he's being picked by people all over the world, and it would just never work out. So never, I would highly recommend not going for people who are being picked by their national countries. Instead being an overseas player who's currently not considered. And that will change over careers, of course. But that's what I would do. Again, go through their second 11 stats. Or if they've got first class stats, you can also do that as well. Whichever suits that. But let's say we're going to exit for now. And then you would move on to your first match. And here you are. So this is the next this is the next part I would like to talk about here. Coaching. This is a big part of the career mode as well, guys. This is a big part of the game as well, guys, because coaching does two things. One, you can actually develop players. So you could, for example, for McWurry, you could look at his personal and go, okay, I want to try and see if you can actually get better off the front foot or stuff like that, just so he doesn't have weaknesses. Or the one I like to use more often is actual practice. So chuck practice on those who you are going to play in your team. So roughly I would go Rutherford, I was going to say would play, but he's already in form, wouldn't bother. And already a good sign here straight away is Robertson is in form. Now here's the interesting thing though, he's 5-star form, but he hasn't got a single 100 in this list here, guys, as you can see. Not 100, not a single one. And that kind of right there is a big indication that he's actually not that great a player. Those that are out of form but are still scoring runs, those are the players you want. Because the saying to follow is a good player out of form is still better than a bad player in form. Every time. Hands down. That's why the good players are picked and the bad ones are not. Because even when the bad players are in form, they're still worse than a good player out of form. Because the good player will come very good, and the bad player coming good will just stay good, right? If you're average is the way to, put it really. So, like, that's why Robertson straight away, I would just say, I would go back and I would say this would be, that pick right there was a pretty poor pick, because McRury is straight away a better pick. I'd instantly be putting coaching on him because I want him to play, because even though Robertson's in form, like I just said, he hasn't scored 100 in that time. The other thing that people focus a lot on is batting technique and the techniques around the batting and bowling here. Now, as you can see, you can coach a lot of things. You can turn, nowadays, guys, you can turn people into openers. You can turn people from openers into middle order players. You can do all sorts of cool stuff, changing players around the place. But I will say one thing, and that is coaching takes time. It takes a lot of time to make it work. And honestly, nowadays, I personally have given up on doing coaching. A lot of it anyway. I wouldn't really see a reason to coach someone. I would just go and find a good player like McCrory. Like, why coach Robertson when I can just make McCrory play and see him play really well? I don't know. That's just my opinion. I would recommend you experiment with coaching yourself, but I would highly recommend that you do not coach many players in this screen. So you'd only probably coach one at most, maybe two, depending on your budget, I guess, and your team. It's the main thing is keeping your players who are playing in form, because the coaching, as you'll see in a minute, bumps up players' form artificially. So I'll show you here, guys, for example, with Robertson, right? With Robertson, you can see that his coaching effect is 0%. That's the form, if you give him batting practice, that's the coaching effect coming in. Technique coaching, that tells you how long his technique coaching's been going. And if it says 0 days, I mean, if the fact that it says 0 days, like, that should be of concern straight away, because it means it could take 200 days sometimes to coach someone. It's a long process, technique coaching, guys. I can tell you that much. Match form, 90%. So the match form's the one you want to look most at, but their form, overall batting form, is a combination of both, or an average of both, I guess. Obviously, if it's 0%, it's not going to take it, but the fact that if I gave him batting form now, or batting coaching now, this coaching effect would go up to 10%, and therefore it'd bump up his overall batting form, but 10% of it would be coaching effect. All right, so the next thing is what I do all the time is I give my keepers catching, because I mean, let's be honest, guys, when you edge it behind in cricket, you need the keeper to take the grab, right? Take the catch. You need your keepers taking catches when matches. And as you can see, Max Chewy, I mean, look at him. He chews up catches for when he plays. 3.67 catches per match. Crazy stuff. 1.23 to Renwick. But I reckon Renwick is not played as a keeper half the time, I reckon. That's probably why it's a little bit lower. Whereas Max Chew's only played 3 games. That's half of it too. But you want your keepers taking catches. That's the main thing, guys. And I did see this somewhere. I kind of believe it. I don't want to do it just in case. But I did hear one thing somewhere, guys, which is be careful with your catching. Because apparently, if I put it on, say, Rutherford, and he's in form as a batsman, apparently in doing that, it increases the chances of them getting injured. So doing the fielding technique is possible. I've read it somewhere. I don't know if it's true or not. Couldn't tell you guys, but just be wary that it's possible that giving someone fielding skill like that or fielding practice could lead them to get injured. Because obviously it would make sense, because if you're doing lots of fielding, you might break a finger or injure something, right? I'm just letting you know that could be the case. And so what not to do is basically, if you can't give it to a keeper or don't want to give it to a keeper, and you want to give it to like a slip fielder or something, just don't give it to the people who are in form. So I'd give it to Phillips or something, for example. I wouldn't give it to Rutherford or Robertson, because I don't want the in-form players getting injured. We want our in-form players available all the time, if possible. So that's why I would not give it to anyone who's in form. Do not give catching to anyone who's in form. Or batting or bowling in general, because you don't need to. I mean, if they're in form, they're in form. You don't need to touch them, really. Those that are out of form, though, we'll say that, guys, give them coaching, because the coaching helps them get the match form back. Or it should. I mean, if that doesn't, then nothing will. But the coaching does help them artificially inflate their form, which helps them get back match form over time. Physio, this really just helps fitness. So as you can see, the fitness bars are on the right there. The lower they are, the closer they are to getting injured, basically. So you want to put that on anyone who is currently looking lower than normal, or your most important players. So I'd go, the first thing I'd check is fitness on important players, and then fitness in general. So if everyone's looking bad or everyone's looking good, put it on the good players to make sure that they have a decreased chance of getting injured, because you want your good players for the season as much as possible. For example, I've gone for Phillips and Moller, just because I'm not sure about Phillips. I might as well make sure he's got some form there. And as you can see straight away, welcome to the career mode, guys. Rippon is selected by the Netherlands. So you've just got to always prepare your contracts wisely, because you've got other players who play for different countries and can be selected at any time for whatever reason. For example, it's the T20 World Cup that's going on. Rippon selected for that. And now again here, guys, as you can see, Josh Finney got injured, unfortunately, out for 4 weeks. Very unfortunate. And Rippon as well on international duty. And these symbols on the left here represent that, guys. So there you go, just a nice little thing there. As you can see, Broom, those that have the coaching, those that got batting or fielding, or no, batting or bowling coaching, instantly got their form up, as you can see. So you can see Bacon and Duffy. I didn't use all my coaching, I should have, but never mind. do that is one thing I would say. Make sure you use all your coaching sessions. But as you can see, Makuri went up. All those that got coaching, they all went up. So, I mean, hey, let's just try and jump into a match, guys, and see what happens. I would just Shark Kitchen at 4. And here's a tip as well, guys. If you're selecting a lineup, down the bottom here it says opener in ODI T20, first class number 4. So that kind of helps you kind of show whereabouts they bat. I don't think it technically matters if they don't bat their exact position. I don't know, but I don't think so. I think as long as they bat there or thereabouts, as long as they're not like a number 7 in their opening, or an opener batting at number 9, then you're kind of set. I mean, for the bowlers, I just kind of go by batting average more so than anything else. So I might put Matt Bacon above Ray because he's just got a better batting average. That's it. But yeah, that would be my team right there. I'd go, yeah, I think that's pretty decent. Yeah, so that's the sort of team I'd go with, guys. Pretty decent looking Otago lineup going up against Wellington. And there you go. Curry is actually playing against us here, which is not great. As you can imagine, we're just going to call heads or whatever. I'm just going to try and show you now the basics of batting and bowling, especially in first class cricket. The basics here, this is the bowling screen. As you can see, here's the batters on the right. You can see the aggression level. I would always suggest starting with this aggression level. Now you have to realize, here's as I'll play this game here, I won't actually have the sound included. I would normally play on low chances for these sort of matches, or if you want to see boundaries of your team, I would suggest going medium, but for the opposition, you don't want to see them hit 4s. You just want to go through. Bacon to Blundell, for example. He's played a missed. But you can just imagine, guys, we'll just go through, as you can see here, just a quick glance around the field. You can see, look how many players are everywhere, right? You got 3 slips, you got a gully, you got short leg. You just have to keep that in mind for this aggression level, because you can't keep it for long, because you've basically got no fielders in any defensive position at all. And so keeping this high aggression would basically be pointless if you're not going to get wickets. Well, fortunately for us, we got Blundell, so there you go. Therefore, Conway's at the crease now, so we don't have to lower the aggression. But if someone was to get in, you want to make sure that you lower the aggression, because as you can see, the field automatically starts spreading. And I would say once someone's like 40 plus, I'd be here to here. I'd just be completely defensive on them. And you'd think, being a first class sort of game or whatever, guys, that it would be ineffective. But you'd be surprised how many batters get themselves out after the field goes out. Anyway, so you can push change up here to obviously change bowlers. I would highly... The mistake a lot of people make with their selections, guys, especially in first class, is picking too many bowlers. Like, bowling Foxcroft should be an absolute last resort, because his career record... Okay, well, never mind. His career record's actually very, very good. I don't know what I'm talking about. But so maybe try Foxcroft out, because his career record seems amazing. But the reality is that if it actually turns out to be like a bit of a 30s, 40s average, you don't want to bowl him unless it's absolutely necessary, unless it's spinning a long way. And plus, I wouldn't even suggest bowling him at this stage anyway. The pitch, as you can see down here, is absolutely brilliant, so I wouldn't even suggest it at all. And as you can see, 19, I'd kind of start to pull the field back a little bit, because you don't really want to keep having all these aggressive fields if they're getting themselves. And Conway's on 25, I'd be half out now, and don't do what I just did there. So if the bowler runs out of stamina, they will need to be pulled, because they would actually, and there's a chance that if you don't pull them off, they actually get injured. So we might actually see our other, no, we're lucky. Mala does not get injured, he gets rested instead, which is very lucky, because sometimes they just get straight injured. And you lose them for the match, so I would suggest you pull them just before that stamina bar reaches empty. That's lunch there. As you can see, Conway and Ravindra are absolutely nailing it. In saying it, it's actually very cloudy, so I'd make sure I have a slip in, because it's actually going to do a lot more now that it's cloudy. But yeah, guys, that's all my bowling tips, really. Just basically the aggression. Be defensive when they're going hard at you, because there's no point in having all these fielders. I mean, yeah, he could have edged it to slips there, but the reality was he probably would have he would be on like 100 by now. He'd really be creaming it. I mean, they are creaming it anyway, but you'd rather cream it with the field out than... See, there you go. I edged off Conway. See, and I don't know. I feel in general, guys, that this game, the more defensive you are, actually, at times, the better. Obviously, we actually just got Bracewell out there by accident with a pretty defensive field, but I wouldn't suggest that be the case, so I would definitely attack feature. But yeah. I mean, if you know cricket, guys, you kind of know the gist of this whole thing. I'll try and get to a position here where I can end up batting. A suggestion for bowling changes, guys. You're looking for wickets and economy and chances. It doesn't show here, but you get a kind of gist of how many chances they're creating. If they're creating chances and their economy's low, even if they haven't taken wickets, I'd bowl them more often than not. Those that have taken wickets, you try and bowl as well, but normally a good economy, a lot of chances, and wickets kind of come hand in hand. So you'll be able to tell pretty quick who your good bowlers are and who are not by kind of just assessing the amount of chances they create, basically. That's the sort of stuff you're looking for with the players, is trying to create chances for your bowlers so that you can take wickets. And yeah, once you get down to the bowlers, guys, it's kind of just all go, because a lot of the bowlers in the game usually can't bat, and you kind of just want to clean up the tail. And you can see down the bottom here, guys, the bonus points. That's something you should... I think it's different for every division or country, but you should look at the bonus points where you can. At the end of, I think, your first game, I think you'll be able to push somewhere on the points table. It will come up with the rules. We are onto the batting now, and with the batting, I personally normally start quite defensive to kind of get myself settled in. So as you can see here, with no settled bar, at that sort of level, like a quarter, I would kind of move up to 2, and about halfway, I'd start pushing it up. Lunch though, so I'd kind of be wary about pushing too early after lunch, and then I'd be going after that. Unfortunately, my query's gone though. But yeah, it's just kind of, it's a settled game, guys. Oh, it's a no ball, you beauty. In these games nowadays, they actually tell you the run rate that you're actually going at, roughly, with that player. It's not going to go at that run rate, but that's roughly the sort of run rate you're going at. So if you're going at a chase, for example, you might want to go at a run rate of 9. It won't give you a run rate of 9, but it's the sort of thing they're trying to get, just as an example there. But yeah, it's just about building partnerships, really, the way I see it, because obviously 353 is a lot of runs. You don't want to basically be going too hard too early. I mean, it depends because a lot of people start at 2 bars, and it depends on how you feel, I guess. I feel that I'd rather be more conservative, because I can win the game later on. Once the players are settled, I can actually, once you're on 100, you can almost go up, right? Because you're fully confident. And yeah, guys, that's really it. It's just a game of trying to manage aggression levels, really. You don't want to go too hard too soon. It depends on, obviously, the situation of the match as well. If we needed to blast it, we should go up. If we needed to defend it, we should go down. You can actually go down to 0 as well, just as a note there. So if you wanted to completely shut up shop and be like, we're going to draw the game from day dot, then you can do that. Here you go, guys. You can actually push menu competition rules, and there are all your bonus points coming up, and they all come in the first innings only, normally. So go big in the first innings, really. Save your first innings performance as your best performance, because you get all the points in the first innings. Second innings means absolutely nothing. Only the result is the points you get after that. Coming back to the team details, guys, there's actually a couple of things I've missed here, but developing a good all-rounder in Cricket Captain is actually incredibly difficult. So it's one thing to look out for, is looking out for how they're kind of going along with both their batting and their bowling. Because, for example, Ripon, you'd probably see as more of a bowling all-rounder, because his bowling average is 16, 20, 26, and even though his batting's 32, it's not like... And you wouldn't pick him based on an average of 32 as a batter, right? But you'd pick him as a 26 on a bowler. So those sort of things, like just looking out for which they do better, and being aware that even though they're all-rounders, a lot of times they convert into just one-dimensional players. It's very rare to see a true all-rounder who comes out and actually does well in both facets with batting and bowling. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. With the coaching as well, guys, when you actually coach players up, if you wanted to, you can actually coach people's aggression levels. So if you coach aggressive shots, then someone from average would move to aggressive and then to very aggressive, or defensive, vice versa, then move down to slightly defensive and then very defensive. So that's something to keep in mind as well with all the spin stuff. So if he was good against spin and you wanted him to be that way, you could say be face spin for technique coaching, go to spin. Or you could be like, I want him to be a more balanced player, then you can go coach pace, and it will coach his slight spin to nothing. It'll actually change to nothing. It'll be neutral. No pace or spin preference there. Doesn't mean he's good or bad against it, it just means he doesn't have a preference of it. That's something to keep in mind as well, guys. These preferences, a lot of people bowl to them, but I don't really bowl to people's preferences too much, because, for example, like, of course, openers are going to be strong at pace, but that means that that assumption assumes that they're going to be weak against spin, which isn't necessarily the case. A lot of openers might be good against both, funny enough, and therefore that's why they're a world-class opener, right? That you're not going to be bad against spin, but just because they like pace. They just prefer pace because that's what most people would start with or whatever, right? So just be careful about that, because, you know, the Virat Kohlis, the Kane Williamsons, the Steve Smiths, they're not going to be caught out by having a preference. They have a preference, but that doesn't mean they're not good against the other thing, just as a kind of heads up there. So I don't personally bowl to it. It is, I mean, I've seen a lot of people do that. A lot of people bowl to those preferences, but I personally do not. So it's up to you guys whether you want to take that or not. Also, another thing to point out, guys, I've heard a lot about medium bowlers in this game. We actually don't have any in this team. If we go to, for example, Auckland, we've got a few. Medium bowlers really struggle in this game, guys, for whatever reason, and I think it might just be because it's super effective. They're really, really good under clouds, but if there's no clouds at all on that certain wicket or that certain game, then, and it's just really sunny the whole time, they really, really struggle. So I think that's a big reason for that. I've heard as well leg spinners do exceptionally well whether they're defensive or aggressive. Also, guys, a quick tip as well, if you're looking at players' statistics here, looking at their economy and their average kind of gives you an indication of how they play as a player. So, for example, Lister's quite defensive because he's got an economy of under 3, but McClenaghan is quite aggressive because he's got an economy of over 3.5. So you kind of judge there based on how they play and kind of play them that way or coach them that way to kind of keep them going, because there's no point in giving McClenaghan defensive bowling if he's going at 3.56 per over. He kind of wants to take wickets and, you know, bounce batters out or try and concede a lot of runs, but at a quick rate, but at least they'll try and get the wickets for you. As opposed to someone like Somerville, who's quite a defensive bowler, as you can see, kind of ties batters down and forces batters into mistakes over time. Other than that, guys, I mean, average is the main thing. For batters, you want to see, especially in first class, a good average. You don't really care too much about strike rate, but you just kind of want to see like a good average of maybe, I mean, these are pretty decent averages. 39 to start the career mode would be okay. So like 39.62 for Phillips. It's quite aggressive. 60 strike rate, but more importantly, he gets nearly 39 runs every time he goes out to bat. So that's kind of the sort of stuff you're looking for, which is why, of course, we picked up Tom McCrory, of course, because he had such a good average that basically, on average, he's going to get 61 runs every time he walks out to bat. So that's in second 11 3-day. We want that to convert to, if it converts to 50 in first class, I'd be absolutely thrilled with that. So that's the sort of stuff you guys want. And when you're forming a team, guys, you really, especially early doors in the career mode, you kind of want to pick your experienced players and your youth players and a couple of youth players in there. You don't want to go too heavy on experience or too heavy on youth, because you kind of always want people developing, but you don't want too much youth that, you know, because youth players are very vulnerable to failure, especially early in their careers, especially the first 15 games. So you have to really be careful around picking that. And that they can do well, but give them the experience around them so that if they don't, you can actually still win the game. I'm sure I've missed some stuff, guys, but I think I've covered everything there is to cover, at least in this tips and tricks video, guys. If you did enjoy, please like and subscribe. Comment down below your thoughts. Let me know. I've probably missed a bunch of things, guys, so let me know down in the comments what I have missed. Let me know if you're looking forward to the new game coming soon, Cricket Captain 2021. Join my Discord server. Otherwise, I'll see you all in the next video, guys. Goodbye for now.